Hey Fight fans, I'm Sarah Davis and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. We're bringing you the top headlines from the MMA world, so stick around to find out who is replacing Shane Carwin, when the GSP versus Silva Superfight will happen, and the latest fight announcement. John Ramdeen and Robin Black will break it all down for us, and here are the Newsmakers. So Shane Carwin recently blew out his knee and is unable to face fellow Ultimate Fighter coach Roy Nelson at the TUF 16 finale on December 15th. Now TUF 10 veteran Matt Mitrione has verbally agreed to replace Carwin and meet Nelson in the octagon at this season's finale. Mitrione was originally supposed to fight Philip DeFries at UFC 155, and now DeFries will get a new opponent. The ongoing George St-Pierre versus Anderson Silva Superfight talk continues, and earlier this week, Silva said he wouldn't call out GSP if he wins this Saturday, and Silva doesn't want to fight until late 2013. Well, Dana White most recently alluded to the fact that the Superfight is going to take place in May if GSP beats Carlos Condit at UFC 154. UFC officials have announced another match for UFC 156. Wrestler John Fitch and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist Fitch-Maia are the latest match added to the card. Fitch earned Fight of the Night at UFC 153 with a decision over Eric Silva, while Maia also got a W at UFC 153 when he submitted Rick Story. Those are the latest MMA headlines. Now let's take it over to our MMA panel, John Ramdeen and Robin Black. And guys, Fitch-Maia, I know you're excited.
How can you not be excited about this? You know, when Fitch-Maia made his welterweight debut, I think a lot of people were saying, how is he going to do? You know, he's not a massive 185-pound guy, didn't have that muscle bulk. So when he went down to 170, there was a lot of questions people had, but he answered them with a great performance. His last performance against Ricky Story, really dominating this wrestler, and I just love this match with John Fitch. I think it's very evenly matched, and if he can manage a victory over the battle-tested John Fitch, you have to imagine that he could be one of the guys next in line for a shot at the title.
For sure, man. I don't know if we're becoming bigger marks or if just that arms race of high-quality matchups is just escalating, but this one is just phenomenal. Fitch has been at the top of that division for a long time, the ultra-uber gatekeeper, and then for Maia to come along now and look that good in his last fight, to look so good at 170, man, the welterweight division is terrifying.
You look at February 2nd, UFC 156 taking place at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. The main event, Frankie Edgar taking on Jose Aldo for the featherweight championship of the world. Also on that card, the Reem taking on Bigfoot, Rashad Evans taking on Little Nogueira, and now this fight with John Fitch and Fitch-Maia. Also rumored to be on this card, Nick Diaz and Josh Koscheck. However, I don't think there's any way they're going to put that fight on this card. It is simply loaded as well. They have Uriah Faber fighting on this card as well. One of the best cards of the year, actually one of the best cards in recent memory. I don't know how they're going to be able to top this.
It's a smorgasbord of violence. That's what it is. It's going to be fantastic. You know, it's crazy. When the UFC went over to Fox, there was all this talk about growing pains. They had so many cards to fill. Fox, FX, Fuel, all of it. And there was this ragtag group of fights. Now you're really seeing what you can do with 400 plus athletes all lined up, all finding their way, fighting their way to find who is at the top. This is what the UFC is all about.
But the question casual fans are bound to ask is, when a card is so loaded like this, and you look at some of their other cards, whether it be on Fuel TV, FX, or some of the undercards on Fox, maybe inconsistent. You have one card that's, you know, very exciting with some of the biggest stars in the promotion, and then other cards that have one or two interesting fights. And yes, for hardcore fans, maybe the undercard is intriguing, but it seems that there is a discrepancy.
Yeah, you know, at the same time, you gotta know who your core is, and it's modern marketing. You gotta feed the core, and that core will be watching the UFC regardless, and that's your base amount. You can't count on the fact that the guys in the back row are gonna buy every pay-per-view. You get your core excited, and then every now and again, you hit a home run like this, and we're seeing more and more of them.
Of course, mixed martial arts fans are bound to be excited about a potential matchup between Anderson Silva and George St-Pierre. We've heard it for years and years and years. What would happen if these guys face each other? Well, Dana White's saying that this fight may happen in May. I don't think so. You know, all due respect to the UFC president, but there's so many what-ifs before this fight ever happens. Number one, what if Carlos Condit becomes the new welterweight champion? He says he's interested in fighting Anderson Silva. What happens if George St-Pierre re-injures his knee? What happens if he gets hurt in this fight? There are so many questions that have to be answered before we can even think about this fight happening, let alone happening in May.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the key thing that has to happen when a fight of this size is a lot different than just booking a fight. We have to look and go, we are going into business. The UFC will go into business with these two camps. You got to make a deal that works for everybody. And you know, when that deal's not quite working, it's not there yet, you're a promoter. You can look right at the camera and go, we are totally making this in May. And then people will, you know, get excited, start to lean on the fighters. It's just a tactic. It's a bit of a ploy. We'd love to see this fight. It's the greatest fight of all time. But man, you can't trust anything a promoter says.
Again, I don't necessarily know if I really want to see this fight. Right now, we have a superstar in the middleweight division. We have a superstar in the welterweight division.
You don't want to see these two guys fight.
I want to see this fight as much as I want to see Alistair Overeem versus Frankie Edgar. They're two guys from two different weight classes, two guys that control a weight class. Of course, Frankie Edgar was
You
the one.
don't want to see these two guys fight to see who would win.
Again, I'm really not that interested. Yes, in the grand scheme of things, I would watch the fight. I would be interested, but I don't know if I'd be that interested. Let George stay at welterweight. Let Anderson stay at middleweight, and I think it makes the most sense. Sarah, you're the tiebreaker. What do you think?
You confuse me, John Ramdeen,
I'm
and
on
that
Robin's
mustache
side.
ain't helping.
Sorry, Rammer. I love you, Rammer, but I'm with Robin on this one. I want to see that fight, even if it screws up the divisions. All right, thanks for that, guys. It's UFC 154 in Montreal this Saturday night, and George St-Pierre is slated to make his comeback against Carlos Condit. So as soon as that fight ends, join us on Fight Network for a live recap of the fights with Ramdeen and Robin, and we'll also bring you the live broadcast of the post-fight press conference from the Bell Center. So don't miss it. Coming up next on Fight News Now Extra, Tom Lawler fills us in on sumo wrestling.